The road curved like a ribbon of silver between the trees, empty and endless, flanked by nothing but tall pines and whispers of wind. My car hummed steadily beneath me, a dull soundtrack to the thoughts spinning in my head. Another Monday, another content day, another day pretending everything was fine when it hadn't been fine in years. I turned down the radio. Silence settled in, broken only by the soft whoosh of trees rushing past. Forests always made me feel something, like they remembered, like they watched. My fingers tightened around the steering wheel as I exhaled, steadying myself. I wasn't going to cry, not today. Then I saw it. A small shape darted across the road, then stumbled. My foot slammed on the brakes. The tires screeched, and the car jolted forward before skidding to a stop just inches from the tiny creature in the center of the road. A baby coyote. It stood frozen, one of its front legs trembling in the air, lifted off the ground like it hurt to touch. Its eyes, wide, golden, scared, locked with mine through the windshield. I threw the gear into park and opened the door, stepping out into the chill air. The silence of the forest wrapped around me like a breath held too long. The coyote didn't run, it just stared. "It's okay," I whispered, kneeling down slowly. "I won't hurt you." I inched closer, my palms out. It flinched but didn't flee. I could see the blood now, thin, a shallow gash near the joint, likely caught on barbed wire or something worse. The fur around the leg was matted, dirty. "It's all right," I said again. "I've got you." I gently scooped it into my arms. It was light, warm, trembling. Its breathing was shallow but steady. Its heartbeat thudded against my wrist like a fast, frightened drum. As I cradled the coyote, the familiar scent of pine and earth filled my lungs, and memory hit me like wind through an open window. I was 7 again, standing beside my mom in a field of long grass. A fox had been caught in a fence, and she was wrapping it in a blanket while my dad filmed from a distance. "It's scared, but not of us," Mom had said. "It knows we're here to help." I blinked hard, pulling myself back. The present coyote shivered against me. "Okay, little one," I murmured, walking toward my trunk. "Let's see what I've got." Inside, I found my old first aid kit, one I always kept in the car, more out of habit than necessity. The gauze was a little dusty, but the antiseptic spray was still good. I laid the coyote on a folded sweater and began cleaning the wound. It whimpered, but didn't resist. "You're doing great," I whispered. "Braver than most people I know." I reached for my phone, hands a little shaky. The golden light slanting through the trees was perfect. The shot framed the coyote's face just right, its wounded leg still lifted, eyes alert. Caption: rescued a baby coyote from a bear attack. Leg injured but safe now. Nature needs us. Hashtags: Wildlife Rescue, Forest Life, Save Our Animals. I hit post. The likes would roll in. The comments too. Hero vibes, good girl points. That's how this worked, right? But I didn't feel like a hero, not really. I just felt sad. I glanced up and froze. In the tree line, maybe 20 feet ahead, something moved. Another coyote stepped out from behind the shadows, but this one was different. Bigger, stronger. Its fur was darker, thicker, a sheen of silver running along its back like a streak of moonlight. And its eyes, those weren't scared. They were watching. Assessing. It stood perfectly still, half-shadowed by the trees. My breath caught. I took a step forward. The air shifted. The coyote vanished. Not ran, not darted. One blink and it was gone. I turned in a full circle, scanning the trees. Nothing, no sound, no rustle, not even a paw print in the soft dirt. A chill crept up my spine. I looked back at the injured pup. It stared in the same direction, ears still perked, as if it too had seen something it couldn't understand. "What was that?" I whispered. Then I noticed it. Beyond the road, just beyond the trunks of trees, more coyotes. 5, maybe 6, all small, all limping. All with the same injury. Front legs lifted off the ground, bent at odd angles, some wrapped tight to their bodies. No way, that wasn't natural. That wasn't coincidence. I stood, heart thudding. They didn't move, didn't growl, just watched. I backed away slowly, lifting my phone again, clicked a few more photos, zoomed in. Then one by one, the small coyotes turned back toward the woods and disappeared between the trees like shadows dissolving in fog. Buzz. My phone lit up. Tom read. "Where are you? You're late." I stared at the screen. My fingers hovered over the keys. I called him instead. He picked up on the second ring. "Hilsa," he said, a little too chipper. "Where are you? You said you were on the way an hour ago." "I got held up," I said, still watching the trees. "Doing what? We're gonna be late for class, and you promised to come early." "I know, I'm coming now." A pause. "You all right?" "I'm fine." "You sound." I said, "I'm fine, Tom. I'll see you there." I hung up before he could say more. I glanced once more at the tree line. The large coyote was gone, the others too. Only the road remained, quiet and long and straight ahead. I wrapped the injured coyote in my sweater and placed it carefully in the passenger seat. It nestled in, curling into itself, exhausted. I opened my camera once more and took a final photo, just of the trees this time. Captioned it, "Not all who wander are lost. Some are watching." Then I started the engine, turned back onto the road, and headed toward college. Still shaken, still silent, but no longer unaware. The highway stretched ahead, its curves lined with towering trees whose shadows swept across my windshield like ghost fingers. I drove on autopilot, but my mind wasn't on the road. It was still stuck in that clearing. The baby coyote's limp, the cold silence of the woods, the vanishing eyes. Something wasn't right. I shifted in my seat and adjusted the mirror. My reflection looked pale, too quiet. The sun filtered in through the canopy above, bathing everything in flickers of gold and green. Familiar, comforting. But beneath that warmth was something else. A tight pull in my chest that hadn't eased since this morning. As I took the next turn, muscle memory guiding me toward campus, the coyote's trembling body flashed in my mind again. Its weight in my arms, the shallow breaths, the blood. And then, like a current pulling me down, my thoughts slid into a memory I hadn't visited in years. I was 9. My boots squelched through thick mud as I ran behind my parents. We were deep in Greenville Forest, cameras slung over shoulders, drone packed in my dad's backpack. My mom crouched beside a badger trapped in a plastic net left by illegal poachers. "It's okay, buddy," she murmured, her fingers working gently, untangling the mess. My dad knelt to film, his voice calm but excited. "You're doing great, honey. Just hold it there. Let's get the rescue shot." They were like that, always in sync, always doing something kind. My parents weren't just influencers. They were rescuers, educators, lovers of the earth. And then they were gone. I blinked back into the present. The police had found their bodies just 2 miles from our usual trailhead. Both of them, faces peaceful, clothing torn, bodies cold. The official report was vague, something about multiple claw markings, no clear animal pattern. Wolves, coyotes, maybe a bear, maybe more. No single predator could have done it, the experts said. But I always remembered the look on the forest ranger's face when he told me. Like he knew something he wasn't allowed to say. I tightened my grip on the wheel. I used to believe nature was safe, that the wild things were gentle if you respected them. Now I wasn't so sure. Campus came into view around the bend, stone buildings, modern steel and glass centers, and a flood of students moving like bees between lecture halls. I pulled into the student parking lot and turned off the engine, glancing down at my phone. No new texts from Tom. That was probably a good thing. I wasn't ready to explain my silence or the coyote, or whatever had just happened. I took a breath, touched up my lip balm in the mirror, and stepped out of the car. As soon as I crossed the courtyard, I spotted him, Tom, leaning against the brick wall near the cafeteria entrance, arms crossed, sunglasses pushing his messy brown hair back. He smiled when he saw me. "There she is," he said, straightening. "I told you I was coming," I replied, walking toward him. You didn't answer your phone. We already talked in call, I said. I called you again. I was driving. He opened his arms like he expected a hug. I let him pull me in briefly, but didn't stay there long. My head was still in the forest, with limping pups and eyes that disappeared into thin air. Tom leaned down a bit, nudging my temple. You okay? You look weird. I'm just tired. Bad dreams again. No, not dreams. I hesitated. Something happened, I'll tell you later. He frowned slightly, searching my face. Then he slipped a hand into mine. Well, whatever it is, you're here now. Let's get something sweet and wake you up. He tugged me toward the building, all smiles and charm again. That was Tom, sweet on the surface, but when things didn't go his way, his jaw would tighten, and his eyes would get this sharpness I didn't like. Still, I let him lead me in. Classes passed in a blur. I took notes I didn't process and nodded when professors made eye contact. At one point, I stared out the window for so long that the girl beside me nudged me with her pen and whispered, You good? Yeah, I murmured, just zoning out. It wasn't until my final class of the day that I snapped back to earth, mainly because I had no clue where my notebook had gone. Need these, a voice said softly. I turned. Jake stood beside my desk, holding out a small stack of papers. You left your notes at the back during last week's lab. Oh, right, thanks. I took the papers and smiled. Jake's eyes lingered on mine for a second too long, then he looked away. He was quiet, bookish, always a bit out of sync with everyone else, but he had this calm presence, like a pond that never rippled no matter how much wind blew over it. You okay? He asked. Yeah, just a weird morning. He didn't push, just nodded, then returned to his seat near the back. That was something I liked about Jake. He didn't ask more than he needed to. After class, I was halfway through scrolling comments on my viral coyote post when Tom popped up again. You, me, tonight, he said as he swung his backpack over one shoulder. I blinked up from my phone. What? I've got the house to myself. Thought we could, hang out, no distractions, just us. His tone was light, casual, but his smile was sharp. I hesitated. I don't know. He tilted his head. Why not? I'm just not in the mood for whatever you're planning. He frowned. You don't even know what I'm planning. I can guess. Tom dropped his voice, leaning in. Come on, Hilsa. It's been, 2 weeks since we've had time alone? I stepped back. I said no. His jaw tensed. I don't get why you're always pulling away lately. Is there something going on? I just have a lot on my mind. Yeah, like what? Another one of your rescue projects. Some broken-winged bird you're trying to nurse back to health. I stiffened. You know that's not fair. You keep disappearing into your own world, Hilsa. You say you want honesty, connection, but you shut me out every chance you get. That's not true. It feels true. We stood there in the parking lot, locked in a silence that hummed with tension. Then he looked away and huffed a breath. Fine, whatever. Maybe call me when you feel like actually being in this relationship. He walked off before I could reply. I stood there for a long time, heart knocking hard against my ribs. Something was changing, and it wasn't just between me and Tom. It was the woods, the animals, the things that were too quiet, the coyote's eyes, the vanishing figure in the trees, and something deeper, an instinct I couldn't explain. Like something old was waking up, watching me. And it wasn't finished yet. I didn't chase after him, but someone else did come. Footsteps approached behind me, softer, less hurried. You okay? Came a voice. I turned. It was Jake. He wasn't someone I spoke to much. A few shared classes, an occasional nod in the library. Kind of like a shadow, quiet, polite, always around but never too close. I tried to muster a smile. Yeah, I'm fine. He glanced in the direction Tom had gone. Didn't look like it. I tucked my arms across my chest. It's just one of those days. Jake nodded, eyes scanning my face without pushing. Wanna get coffee or something? There's a new cafe near the gym. I hear they have cake so good it makes you forget your entire GPA. A short laugh escaped me before I could stop it. Tempting. Or maybe not coffee, he added. Just air, walk, talk. I hesitated. The offer was kind, maybe even sincere, but my chest was heavy, too full of thoughts I didn't want to share with anyone. I appreciate it, I said. Really, but I think I just want to go home. Jake gave a small nod. Got it, rain check. Sure. He smiled, faint but real, and turned away without another word. My car felt colder than usual. The seats too stiff, the silence too loud. I gripped the wheel, still unsure whether I was more upset about the fight or about everything it had pulled up from the past. I pulled out of the lot and onto the road, the tires crunching over gravel. As the buildings thinned behind me and the trees began to rise once more around the winding highway, that familiar hush returned. The forest always waited. It never rushed you. It simply stood watching. The farther I drove, the deeper the quiet sank. Then, out of nowhere, I hit the brakes. A large shape stepped onto the road just ahead. I jolted as the tires squealed and the car came to a stop. It was that coyote. The same one I'd seen before. Large, strong, its fur like dark smoke laced with silver. It stood in the middle of the road, still unmoving. I honked twice. Nothing. I blinked. You've got to be kidding me. I honked again, louder. The sound cut through the trees and echoed into the woods. Still it didn't move, just stood there staring at me. My heart picked up. The lights from the car shone directly on it, catching in its golden eyes. There was something off, not angry, not scared, just too still, too present. I reached for the door and stepped out. The cold air bit at my skin as I approached slowly. But the moment I took 2 steps forward, the coyote was gone. I froze. Not ran, not jumped, not hid. Gone. There had been no movement. No sound of leaves, no rustle of branches. One blink and it had disappeared. I turned in a slow circle, scanning the roadside. Nothing, just trees and wind. What the hell? I whispered, backing toward the car. I got back in, locked the door without thinking, and stared ahead for a long second. Breathe. It's just a coyote. Animals move fast. It could have jumped into the brush, you just didn't see it. But my hands wouldn't stop trembling. I restarted the car and eased forward, eyes flicking from road to treeline with every twist of the path. Then I saw it again. Not on the road this time. This time, it was watching. Perched behind the trees, half hidden, barely visible, but its eyes gleamed through the shadows like fireflies caught in moonlight. It was following me. No, stalking me. I pressed the gas, not reckless, not wild, just faster, as if I could outdrive the way its stare clung to me like frost. The forest blurred past. By the time I pulled into my driveway, my nerves were buzzing like static. I turned off the engine, slumped back against the seat, and took a shaky breath. And then I saw it. Movement. In the yard. A small, huddled shape near the base of the porch steps. I opened the door slowly and stepped out, gravel crunching underfoot. There, curled into the shadow of the stairs, was the baby coyote. The same one that limped Leg's child. Its breathing was shallow, chest rising in quick bursts. Dirt clung to its fur, and the leg I'd cleaned was now swollen, darker, worse than before. Hey, I whispered, crouching beside it. How did you get here? The coyote lifted its head weakly, as if recognizing me. It made no attempt to run. I looked around instinctively, at the trees, the corners of the yard, the places where shadows gathered. Was the large coyote still out there? Nothing moved. I scooped the baby coyote gently into my arms and carried it inside. The warmth of my living room seemed to make the air softer. I placed the pup on a folded towel near the fireplace and hurried to grab the first aid kit. It didn't protest as I cleaned the wound again, but this time I noticed how deep it had gotten. What had been a surface scratch now looked more like tearing, almost surgical. The leg didn't look like it had been caught in wire. It looked targeted. Something had done this. Someone. And not just to this one. I remembered the others, all with the same injury, as if they'd been attacked the same way, with the same precision. Why? I finished cleaning the wound and wrapped it again. The pup nestled into the towel, eyes fluttering shut. Its breathing slowed. I moved to the kitchen, heart still pounding, and opened the fridge. Leftover chicken, carrots, eggs. I warmed up some small pieces of chicken and placed them in a shallow bowl near the pup. It didn't eat, but it sniffed the bowl, eyelids barely opening. "You're safe now," I said softly, sitting down beside it. The room was silent, except for the ticking of the wall clock. I glanced at my phone. No new texts from Tom. Part of me was relieved. I leaned back against the couch, staring at the sleeping coyote. It was so small, so vulnerable, but there was something about its presence that felt grounding, like I wasn't imagining the things I saw in the woods, like I wasn't entirely alone in this unraveling mystery. Something was hurting these animals on purpose. And whatever it was close. Watching. Waiting. The baby coyote lay curled on the folded towel beside the fireplace, its little body rising and falling with soft, uneven breaths. The room was dim now. Only the table lamp cast a glow across the floor, pooling like a safe corner in an otherwise still house. I sat cross-legged on the couch, laptop on my knees, phone in my hand, the silence loud enough to press on my ears. The soft rustle of fur against fabric drew my eyes back to the pup. Its legs trembled, even in sleep. The bandage I'd wrapped around its leg was already stained with a faint red line. It wasn't healing. It was getting worse. Something was doing this. Not nature, not injury, something with intention. I turned back to my laptop and clicked open my bank app. The numbers stared back at me. Main account, 41,820.26. Enough to live on for a couple of years, maybe 3 if I budgeted carefully. It wasn't influencer rich, but it was stability, security, something my parents never had by the end. I clicked into the second tab. Content revenue account, $957.43. A frown creased my brow. Last month it had been half that, but this jump was surprising. I opened my video dashboard and scrolled to the most recent post. Rescued a baby coyote from a bear attack, still shaking. Thumbnails, comments, shares. 12,000 views, hundreds of likes, dozens of new followers, a long scroll of emojis, heart eyes, clapping hands, and words like, "You're amazing. The world needs more people like you. Protect the wild. You should start a rescue fund. I'd totally donate." My finger hovered over the reply button. I should have felt proud. Instead, my stomach twisted. Because I had lied, not entirely, but enough. There had been no bear, no dramatic mid-rescue shot, just a scared, injured pup and me with a camera and a good sense of timing. I told myself it didn't matter. The coyote was hurt. I did help. The story just needed packaging. But still, a voice in the back of my mind whispered, "You turned pain into performance." I closed the tab and set the laptop aside. The pup whimpered in its sleep. "I'm sorry," I murmured. "I didn't mean to use you like that. I just didn't know what else to do." I ran my fingers gently over its back, avoiding the leg. "I'll fix it," I whispered. "I'll figure this out." And I meant it. Because something was wrong here, something more than a few random injuries, the other coyotes in the woods, the identical wounds, the way they watched me, the one that kept appearing and vanishing. I needed to know what was happening, and maybe, finally, I had a reason that wasn't just about clicks and followers. I leaned back, eyes drifting toward the window. The yard was dark now. Trees swayed faintly in the distance. I couldn't see anything, but I felt it. That thing, whatever it was still out there. Watching. Waiting. My phone buzzed softly beside me. I snatched it up, hopeful, but it wasn't what I expected. Just a promotion notification from some app I never used. I hesitated, then opened Tom's chat. Hilsa, are you okay? Hilsa, I'm sorry about earlier. I just needed space. Hilsa, call me if you want. No reply. I stared at the screen a while longer before locking the phone and placing it face down. I glanced again at the coyote. Its ears twitched in sleep. The way it curled into the towel felt almost trusting, like it believed I'd keep it safe. I wished I believed that too. I pulled a blanket over my legs and curled into the couch. The hum of the fridge and the ticking of the wall clock were the only sounds left. Sleep came slowly, and not kindly. A soft noise woke me. Not sharp, not loud. Just wrong. My eyes blinked open to early light spilling through the curtains. Gray-blue, like the world hadn't fully woken up yet. And then I noticed. The towel was empty. My breath caught. I sat up. Hey. No rustle, no whimper, no movement. I stood, blanket falling from my shoulders. The front door was cracked open. My hands went cold. I hadn't left it open. I was sure of that. I stepped toward it slowly. The yard stretched out before me, soft grass glistening with dew. But what made my stomach flip was the trail. Faint red stains across the wood of the porch. Tiny footprints, blood smudges, leading away. God. I hurried back inside, threw on jeans and a hoodie over my sleep clothes, and pulled my boots from under the table. No time to think. No time to brush hair or eat breakfast. I needed to know where it went. What had taken it? I grabbed my keys, heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. The drive was silent. No music. No calls. Just the road and the memory of blood on my porch. When I reached the bend, the same one where I'd found the pack of limping coyotes before, I slowed the car and pulled onto the shoulder. I killed the engine and stepped out. The forest loomed, tall and quiet. I walked. Every step was careful, measured. My eyes scanned for movement, ears tuned to even the slightest sound. Leaves shifted. A bird somewhere chirped and then fell silent. The deeper I went, the colder the air became. I followed the trail I remembered, the one where I'd seen the injured coyotes last time, where the trees pressed a little closer and the sunlight didn't quite reach the ground. But today it was empty. No coyotes. No blood. Just silence. Then I found something. A torn piece of fur caught on the edge of a low branch, brown and soft, fresh. And beneath it, something that didn't belong. A glint of silver. I crouched. It wasn't metal, not jewelry. It was bone. Small, polished clean, like it had been chewed. I swallowed. This wasn't nature. This wasn't survival. This was something else. Something with purpose. And I was standing right in the middle of it. The tiny bone rested in my hand, lighter than I expected. Clean, pale, smooth along one side like it had been polished by time or teeth. I stared at it for a long second, heart thudding in my ears. It didn't make sense. Coyotes didn't clean their kills like this, and this wasn't natural decay. It looked prepared, like something had stripped it clean on purpose. I let the bone slip from my fingers into the leaves and stood up, brushing off my palms. The air around me had changed. I could feel it. Still. Tense. Almost like holding breath. I walked forward slowly, eyes scanning every patch of dirt and root. The trees creaked overhead, wind whispering through their branches like voices just out of reach. And then I saw them. The coyotes. Just 3 now, maybe 4. I crouched behind a tree and watched as they huddled close together, breathing shallow, moving barely at all. Their legs, twisted, swollen, bent at angles that made my stomach knot. I stepped closer, careful not to snap a branch underfoot. One of them tried to stand and collapsed again, a soft cry escaping its throat. Another dragged itself behind a patch of underbrush, half its body coated in drying mud and leaves. It wasn't just the legs anymore. Their bodies looked thinner, their fur duller, like something was draining them from the inside out. I knelt near the nearest one, heart aching. Oh, baby. It turned its head toward me, eyes glassy but aware. Not panicked, just tired. They trusted me. And someone, or something, was hurting them anyway. I reached for my phone and slowly began recording. The camera's red light blinked softly as I captured the twisted limbs, the weakened movements. I didn't speak. There were no captions this time. No filters, just truth. I turned to follow the path deeper, hoping I'd find the others I'd seen days ago. But after 10 minutes of walking, nothing. Only shadows, trees, and the sound of my own steps. That's when I saw it. Something silver, glinting near the base of a low shrub. I slowed, bent down, and froze. It was a ring. A thick, masculine band, worn at the edges with a small crack running along one side. I picked it up carefully. It was definitely his, Tom. I stood there, holding the ring between my fingers, the metal cold against my skin. Why would Tom's ring be here? He never took it off. I glanced around slowly. The forest stared back. Was he out here, last night? The thought tightened something in my chest, not quite fear, not quite anger, just a rush of confusion laced with something I couldn't name. Why hadn't he told me? Why hadn't he replied to my message? I slipped the ring into the pocket of my hoodie and took a shaky breath. My eyes scanned the dirt again. No footsteps, no signs of a struggle, just that one object lying there like it had been left behind. Or dropped. I pulled out my phone and started recording again, this time quietly narrating. I found more of the pack. They're worse. Legs fractured, bodies weak. I don't think this is a natural injury, something doing this on purpose. My voice caught slightly. I steadied it. And I just found something else. A ring. Belongs to someone I know. I'm not posting this, not yet, but I need to keep track. I stopped the video and tucked the phone back into my jacket. The forest felt heavier now. Thicker. Like the air itself had turned to syrup. I stood still and listened. No birds, no wind, no rustling of small animals in the brush. Just silence. Complete. And a feeling behind my spine, like eyes I couldn't see. Watching. Waiting. I turned slowly, scanning every tree, every shadow. Nothing moved. But I knew I wasn't alone. Whoever, or whatever, was behind this, it wasn't done yet. And I wasn't imagining things anymore. I turned back toward the trail and started walking. Faster this time, not running, just focused. I wasn't sure who I could trust. So for now, it would be no one. Just me. And the truth. I started driving. Reached home. My boots thudded softly against the wooden steps as I reached my front porch. I paused before going in, looking down at the edge of the stairs where the red stains had dried in strange, uneven shapes. I should have felt better after seeing the coyotes again, after finding some answers. But all I felt was heavier. I opened the door and stepped inside. The living room was dim, the towel from last night still crumpled on the floor near the fireplace. I picked it up, folded it slowly, and placed it in the laundry bin. Then I went to my bedroom, washed my hands, and changed into fresh clothes, jeans and a loose gray tee. I looked at myself in the mirror. Eyes tired, hair tangled, lips dry. I didn't look like the girl from the viral coyote post anymore. I looked like someone who'd seen something real. The drive to college campus was quiet. My fingers tapped the steering wheel rhythmically as I navigated the roads. The trees on either side blurred into long strokes of green. Tom's ring sat heavy in my pocket. I didn't know if I wanted answers from him or just wanted him to admit something, anything. But part of me already knew. This was bigger than both of us. Bigger than any video, any apology, any excuse. And I wasn't going to stop until I knew the whole truth. By the time I reached campus, the sun had shifted higher, casting long shadows that trailed behind every building. The parking lot was half full. Students wandered toward their classes, sipping coffee, scrolling phones, bumping elbows with sleepy laughter. I stepped out of my car, the cool air brushing against my neck, and shut the door behind me. My mind was still tangled in the forest, the injured coyotes, the bone, the ring. Especially the ring. I ran my thumb over it in my pocket. It was still there, still cold, still real. I turned toward the student center and saw him. Tom. Leaning against the side wall near the fountain, one foot pressed casually to the stone. He was scrolling his phone, brows furrowed, lips twitching like he was lost in thought, as if nothing had happened yesterday, as if we hadn't nearly fallen apart. His head snapped up as I approached, and the frown vanished instantly. "Hey," he said, pushing off the wall. "You're here early." "Yeah," I said, voice even. He studied me for a moment, then offered a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Wanna walk a bit, before class?" I nodded. We fell into step beside each other, cutting through the quad, past the line of trees near the south library wall. Tom reached for my hand but stopped halfway, letting it fall awkwardly back to his side. "You okay?" he asked, not quite looking at me. "I'm fine." "You didn't reply last night." "I messaged you. You didn't reply." Tom glanced at me, then quickly away. "Right, I was busy. Stuff came up." "What kind of stuff?" He hesitated. "Just family stuff." I didn't press, not yet. We walked toward the outdoor cafe area, and I could feel his eyes on me every few seconds like he was waiting for me to soften, to lean into him like before. But my body was stiff, my thoughts louder than anything he could say. At lunch, we sat across from each other on the bench. Tom handed me half of his sandwich without asking, like he always did. I accepted it, took a bite, chewed, swallowed. He talked about class schedules, and some guy in econ who got kicked out for cheating. I nodded, added a few and wow where it fit. But the truth was, I wasn't hearing any of it. His voice drifted like a hum in the background, while my thoughts stayed stuck on silver rings and coyote limbs and silence that stretched too long between messages. Then he leaned forward, hands resting on the table. "I was thinking," he said, "my house is free again tonight. Maybe you could come over, just us this time. Quiet, no weird vibes like before." I sipped my drink. "Not tonight." His brows lifted. "Why not?" "I was thinking, maybe we could go out, to the new club off Ash Creek." Tom blinked. "You want to go to a nightclub?" "Yeah, music, people, might be fun." He hesitated. "You hate loud places." I smiled faintly. Maybe I'm in the mood for noise. Tom chuckled, still watching me carefully. "All right then, let's go out, just you and me." He brushed his thumb over the side of his cup, still watching me with that unreadable smile. "You're full of surprises today," Tom added, leaning back. "Trying something new," I replied softly, standing and gathering my bag. "We'll go after class, all right." "I'll pick you up at 6. I nodded and walked away before he could say anything else. My feet carried me across the quad, but my mind lagged behind, still trying to catch up. I couldn't shake the image of the message from the Night King's group, the idea of secret meetings in the woods, or the bone I had found earlier that morning. I turned the corner of the library building and almost bumped into someone. "Whoa, sorry," a familiar voice said. It was Jake. He took a quick step back, clutching a book to his chest. "You okay?" I forced a small smile. "Yeah, just distracted." He tilted his head slightly. "That's becoming a theme lately." "Maybe," I said, then gestured at the book in his hands. "Something interesting." He looked down. "History of folklore in North America. Pretty niche, but weirdly fascinating." "Sounds like it." I hesitated, then asked, "You believe in all that?" Jake's gaze met mine. "Folklore." "Yeah, things people used to believe in. Creatures, monsters, the supernatural." He didn't answer right away. Then, "I think some stories exist because something made them necessary." I blinked. "That's vague." He smirked faintly. "It's the best kind of true." We walked slowly, falling into step together. The noise of campus life faded behind us. "I'm going to a club later," I said after a pause, not sure why I felt like telling him. Jake arched a brow. "You, a club?" "I know, weird. Going with friends." "Tom." "Yeah." His tone stayed neutral, but the silence that followed carried weight. "He's trying to open up more," I added, not sure who I was convincing. Jake nodded once. "Well, just be careful, Hilsa." I frowned. "Why do you say that?" He shrugged. "You just seem like someone who's walking through a forest and pretending it's a garden." That made me pause. Before I could ask what he meant, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then looked back at me. "I'll see you around," he said gently. "Yeah," I murmured, watching him walk away, the wind playing with the edges of his jacket. The rest of the day dragged. I sat through class but didn't absorb anything, checked my phone more than once, scrolled through the group chat again, looked at the ring in my pocket when no one was watching. By the time I got back to my apartment, the sky was already softening, clouds tinged with orange, casting longer shadows through the windows. I took rest for a while and then took shower. I changed into black jeans and a sleeveless top, pulled my hair back into something semi-decent, and dabbed a bit of gloss on my lips. I stared at my reflection in the mirror for a while. "Noise," I whispered, just enough to drown things out. Then I grabbed my bag, slipped Tom's ring back into my pocket, and stepped into the dusk. That evening, the music hit me like a heartbeat the moment we stepped inside. The club was warm, dim, glowing with soft blue lights and scattered laughter. A DJ spun something low and thumping near the back. Neon signs flickered above the bar. People danced, drinks clinked, bodies swayed like the world outside didn't exist. Tom looked more relaxed than I'd seen him in days. He pulled me gently toward the dance floor. "I didn't expect you to actually like this place," he said over the music. "I'm full of surprises." We moved with the rhythm, his hands around my waist, mine resting lightly on his shoulders. He laughed, a real laugh this time, and I smiled. But my heart wasn't in it. Because I was watching. Waiting. I knew what I was doing. If there was something hidden, maybe it would slip after a drink. Maybe he'd let something out if his guard fell. Tom leaned in and kissed my cheek. I let him. But I didn't feel it. All I could think about was what he wasn't telling me. After a few songs, I pulled him toward the bar. "Drinks?" I asked. He grinned. "Now you're talking." We shared 2 shots, then a cocktail. He loosened up quickly, laughing, teasing, whispering things in my ear that I only half heard. And then his phone buzzed. Just once, a quiet ping, but it caught my attention instantly. He picked it up, glanced at the screen, and tapped it off. "What was that?" I asked. "Nothing," he said. "Who messaged?" "Just someone from class." My eyes narrowed slightly. "Can I see?" Tom tensed. "Why?" "I just want to see." He laughed a bit too loudly. "You don't trust me now." "Come on, Tom, let me see, should I?" That caught him off guard. His smile faltered. I reached across the bar and lightly tapped the phone still in his hand. "Let me see," I repeated. He pulled it back. "Hilsa, seriously, it's private." Which only made me more curious. "Private? Between us there is something private. Are you insane?" Before he could stop me, I leaned forward and snatched the phone from his hand. "Hey." But I was already reading. The last message was from a WhatsApp group called Night Kings. "Where are you? It's late for meeting." I froze. My pulse thudded in my ears. "What is this?" I asked quietly. "Who's texting you?" Tom reached for the phone, but I held it tighter and scrolled up the chat. "Shift time confirmed. Meet at the stone ring before dusk. Don't forget the marks. Full moon prep starts this weekend. Anderson, you're bringing the cloaks, right?" I looked at him, my voice trembling slightly. "What is this, Tom?" Before he could answer, someone approached us from the side. A young man, maybe our age, tall, dark hair, sharp eyes. He grinned and clapped a hand on Tom's shoulder like they'd known each other forever. "There you are," the guy said. Tom flinched. His smile vanished. "Hilsa's here," he said quickly. The man froze. His eyes shifted toward me, then to the phone still in my hand. I straightened. "Tom, who is this?" The man stepped back slightly, clearly caught off guard. Tom exhaled hard. "He's a friend." I extended a hand. "Nice to meet you. What's your name?" The man hesitated, then shook my hand. "Anderson." I tilted my head. "Anderson, you just sent that code in the secret group chat, didn't you?" Neither of them replied. "What's going on?" I pressed. "I want the truth now." Tom glared at Anderson. "You couldn't wait, couldn't message later." Anderson raised his hands. "I didn't know she was here, man." "Why are you angry?" I said calmly. "It's nice to meet Anderson. I'm just trying to understand why my boyfriend is part of a secret group using phrases like shift and cloaks." Tom rubbed his face, then looked at me. "I was going to tell you, I swear." "Tell me what?" Tom took a deep breath. "I'm a werewolf." The words didn't hit me at first. They just hung in the air like leftover smoke. "You're what?" Tom pulled the phone gently from my hand, opened the chat again, tapped a video, held the screen up for me to watch. It was grainy, nighttime in the forest. And there he was, Tom, shirtless, barefoot, breathing heavily, his body tensed and then shifted. Bones cracked, skin shimmered, his body twisted and elongated, and within seconds, where he once stood was a sleek, massive wolf. I stared at the screen. I couldn't deny what I was seeing. My stomach turned. "It's real," Tom said quietly. "I didn't want to hide it forever. I didn't know how to say it without losing you." I swallowed hard. "So it's you, your pack, werewolves." "Yes," he replied. "I found your ring in the forest." He froze. "What were you doing there?" "We just meet. That's where we shift. We don't hurt anything." "Enjoying the forest," I said flatly. "That's what you were doing." Tom nodded. "We just run, that's it." "And hunt, isn't it?" "What? Not at all. We don't touch them. We eat normal food like everyone else." I stared at him. I wanted to believe him, but everything inside me screamed don't. Tom stepped forward and wrapped his arms around me, pulling me into a hug. I didn't move. Then I pushed him away. "I need to think," I whispered. Anderson stepped in, voice calm. "Hilsa, he really loves you. He talks about you all the time. He wanted to tell you. We all warned him to do it sooner." I looked at them both. "People who love you don't hide things," I said, "especially not something this big." And without another word, I turned and walked out of the club, leaving the music, the lights, and their secrets behind me. The car ride home was quiet, but my mind was anything but. Every streetlight blurred into a smear of light on the windshield. I could still hear the music thudding in my head, but louder than that was Tom's voice. And Anderson's. The secret group, the codes, the shifting truth behind those golden eyes. I gripped the wheel tighter, wishing the road would stretch longer so I wouldn't have to stop, so I wouldn't have to feel everything I was feeling. Was Tom really involved in hurting those? The way he'd looked at me when I questioned him, that hesitation, that flicker of guilt. But I wanted to believe he wasn't the villain. I really did. I parked in front of my house, stepped out, and locked the car behind me. The yard was empty, too quiet. The silence stretched like a taut wire as I stepped inside, tossed my bag on the couch, and slumped into bed fully clothed. I stared at the ceiling. And didn't sleep. When morning light seeped through the blinds, I blinked slowly, my body still heavy. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. Messages from Tom, missed calls, dozens. "Tom, I'm sorry, please talk to me." "Hilsa, I didn't want to lose you. Can we meet today, alone?" I didn't reply. Instead, I dragged myself to the bathroom, splashed water on my face, and took a long shower to clear my head. But it didn't work. The water couldn't wash away the questions. An hour later, dressed in a plain white tee and black jeans, I grabbed my camera and headed out. I needed answers. I stopped the car again in the spot. I parked where I had the first time, where I'd seen the limping coyotes. But now, none of them were here. No soft howls, no rustling in the bushes, not even bones, just silence. I crept forward, camera rolling, the lens catching fragments of broken branches and faint blood stains on the earth. But no bodies, no fur, just absence. Then I saw them, foxes, half a dozen or so struggling to walk, some dragging their hind legs, others limping. But one stood out. A large fox, bigger than the rest, standing unnaturally still near a tree, and when I looked into its eyes, my breath caught. Those weren't animal eyes, they were too human, sharp, watching me. I stepped closer, carefully, holding my breath. This fox wasn't injured. It stood tall and perfect, unmarred. Its coat shimmered with health, its ears twitching. I took another step. "Hey," I whispered. It didn't run. It didn't flinch. It just stared. I looked back towards the other foxes, and when I turned back toward the large, strange one, then, like the coyote before it, it was vanished. No rustle, no sound, just gone. My heart thumped against my ribs as I spun around. The other foxes had started moving, limping, dragging themselves, following an invisible path through the trees. I followed too. They all moved toward a clearing, an open ground where the sunlight cut through the canopy in gold slices. At the edge of it, there he was. The large fox, the strange one, standing still again, facing the others like a leader. And every fox, despite their pain, gathered near him as if responding to some silent command. This wasn't natural. This wasn't normal. I started to run toward the strange fox, but before I reached him, he vanished again. And then I heard it. A low, echoing howl. I spun. There near the tall grass, a massive wolf stood, muscles coiled beneath its dark fur, its gaze locked onto mine, unmoving, unblinking. My throat tightened. My feet moved before my brain did. I ran. I didn't look back until I reached the car. I threw myself in, slammed the door, locked it. Nothing outside. No wolf. Except, yes. In the distance, just beyond the trees, the same wolf was standing among the foxes now. Watching. Commanding. Like the fox, like the coyote. My hands trembled as I turned off the camera and sped away. Back home, I parked in the driveway and stayed in the car for a moment, breathing, grounding myself. Then I replayed the footage. Every frame was there. The foxes, the large one, the way they followed it, the howl, the wolf, even its eyes, they were captured, that chilling presence. I didn't post it on social media, because I realized that this is not about getting famous. This was about if I can save them, the innocent ones. I wasn't imagining any of it. I needed more answers. So I drove straight to campus. College felt like a different world. People laughed in the quad. Music played from someone's speaker. None of them knew what was happening beyond the tree line. Jake spotted me near the staircase. He waved, and I walked over. "Hey," he said, his voice warm as always. "You look thoughtful." "Just tired," I said. "Can I give you your notes back?" He smiled. "Of course." I handed them over, but something itched at the back of my throat. I couldn't keep it in. "Jake, do you believe in werewolves?" He blinked, then laughed softly. That, out of nowhere. "I'm serious." "If you are serious, then yes," he said. Jake's face shifted. He looked away for a second, then leaned in slightly. "I've seen one," he said. I froze. "You have?" "Yeah, a long time ago. I didn't imagine it. And I know I'm not the only one who has. There are people here, at this college, who aren't exactly normal." I held my breath. "Can they change, like shift shapes?" Jake shook his head. "Werewolves shift into wolves, not anything more than that, not anything else. That's not how it works." So then, what was I seeing? "What's wrong?" he asked gently. Nothing, I said too quickly. Just curious. Jake tilted his head, studying me. You're not the type to believe in monsters. Maybe I'm starting to. Later that afternoon, Tom approached me outside the science building. Hilsa. I turned. He looked tired, nervous. Can we talk? I nodded slightly. We are talking. I mean privately. I crossed my arms. You had your chance, Tom. He flinched. I didn't know how to tell you. It's not like I could drop "I'm a werewolf" in casual conversation. And the forest, those innocent ones getting injuries. I told you, that's not me, that's not my pack. I didn't fully believe him, but I didn't walk away either. I just need time, I said, to figure out what's real and what is. He looked crushed but nodded. I'll wait, he said. Jake found me again later, walking near the art wing. You okay? He asked. I smiled faintly. I will be. He walked beside me quietly for a while, then said, If you ever need someone who listens, you know where to find me. And for a moment, his presence felt easier than Tom's. Not because I trusted Jake more, but because he didn't lie to me. Or, at least, not yet. I didn't go home straight from college. I needed answers. The whispers in my head refused to settle. Something about Tom's story, about the secret group, the chats, the hidden transformations, didn't sit right. But I couldn't tell if it was just the betrayal stinging or if my instincts were finally clawing their way to the surface. The trees had seen things, and tonight I'd let them speak. The sky was already blurring into dusk when I parked near the trail where I'd once seen the coyotes. No one was supposed to be here this late, but that was the point. I slipped on my hoodie, pulled the strings tight, and tucked my phone into my jacket pocket, already recording on low-light mode. My boots crunched quietly over the forest floor. Each step deeper into the woods felt like stepping further out of the world I used to know. And then a sound. A low growl, soft but wrong. I froze, turning toward it. Behind a thicket, a shape flickered. I edged closer. And there it was, a torn carcass. Small, fur-covered, fresh. No blood trail. Just the body, limp and strange, like something had drained more than just life from it. My heart thudded in my throat. Before I could pull my phone to zoom in, a sudden voice sliced through the trees. What the hell are you doing here? I spun around. Tom. His figure emerged from the shadows, not in wolf form, not snarling, just a boy, a boyfriend, angry and scared. Tom. He was already walking toward me, eyes blazing. You followed me. I wasn't following, I was. Recording us, his jaw tightened. Seriously, Hilsa, after everything, you think I'm the one hurting them. I don't know what to think, I shot back, voice trembling. You lied, you hid this whole world from me. You said your pack doesn't hurt animals, and then I find this. I pointed toward the limp body behind us. How do I know that's not your doing? Tom stepped forward, breathing uneven. You don't, because you won't let me explain. Then explain, I said quietly, eyes locked on his. Why was your ring in the forest? Why do the coyotes keep vanishing? Why are foxes suddenly limping like them? Why are they all following something, someone? His expression flickered. What do you mean, foxes? I saw them, a whole group, injured like the coyotes, and one large fox. It controlled the rest, just like the big coyote, I think. You think I can shift into foxes now? He scoffed. No, I whispered, but someone can. A pause, he was silent. I could see his mind ticking, not confused, not clueless, but calculating. You've seen something dangerous, he said at last. Something that shouldn't be loose in this town. I narrowed my eyes. Then say it, what is it? But Tom just stepped closer. His voice dropped. Hilsa, you're putting yourself in the middle of things you don't understand. My pack isn't hunting these animals, but someone is. And you being here, alone, it's not safe. I'm not scared, I whispered. You should be. His hand reached toward me, almost a touch, then stopped. Please, just go home, don't come back here. But I couldn't let him distract me. I stepped back, shaking my head. You had your chance to tell me the truth, Tom. I'm done waiting. He reached again, but this time I turned, sprinted through the trees, breath shallow and heart wild. He didn't chase me. By the time I reached the car, I could barely breathe. I slammed the door shut, fumbled with the keys, and drove. Only when I was miles away did I pull out my phone and check the footage. Everything had been recorded. The limp animal, the distant figure of Tom, the howl that echoed after I ran. It was all there, but I didn't feel the thrill I thought I would. I didn't feel vindicated or victorious. I just felt tired, and maybe a little heartbroken. When I reached home, I felt tired. I slept without changing clothes. The next morning brought a sharp contrast. My phone buzzed nonstop, over a dozen missed calls and long paragraphs from Tom. Apologies, explanations, empty words maybe. I didn't read all of them. Today wasn't about him. It was my birthday. And strangely, I didn't want cake or candles. I wanted to see everyone together. I needed to know who I could still trust. I messaged Jake, a few college friends, even Tom. Told them I was having a small get-together. Bonfire vibes, just chill. I went to the shop nearby for few things. The moment I stepped back inside, I set my phone on the counter and leaned against the fridge, letting out a shaky breath. The house was too quiet, yet my mind buzzed with noise. The images of foxes and coyotes limping through moonlight, the wolf standing among them like a silent god, and that one strange fox with human eyes. I rubbed my temples. It was still early, not even noon. The sky outside was clean and blue, birds chattering like nothing in the world had changed, but everything had. I moved on autopilot, making coffee just to give my hands something to do. As the kettle hissed, I checked my phone again. 4 missed calls from Tom, 11 texts, all unsent responses blinking back at me. I set the phone face down. "Happy birthday," I whispered dryly to myself, voice flat as I sipped bitter coffee. I'd forgotten, entirely. I stared at the wooden floor, letting the silence stretch. No balloons, no cake, no surprise plans, just injured animals, mysterious shapeshifters, and a boyfriend I didn't trust anymore. I thought about canceling the whole thing, but a voice, maybe the old me, the part that still believed in good things, whispered, "Not everything has to be broken today." Then I rinsed the coffee mug and got dressed. 1:05 p.m., supermart parking lot. The sun beat down as I loaded a basket into my trunk, chips, soda, mini cupcakes, some hanging paper lanterns I found in clearance. I wasn't planning a full party, but something cozy might be good, something normal. As I slammed the trunk shut, a voice behind me said, "Buying the whole aisle or just making sure you win the snack game?" I turned. Jake leaned against his bike, arms crossed and grin cocky. I blinked. "Do you just teleport into places now?" "Nah, just extremely good timing," he said, pushing off and walking closer. "You okay? You look like someone tried to explain taxes to you using interpretive dance." I gave a tired laugh. It's been a weird couple of days. He studied me carefully, his smirk softening. "You've been quiet lately." "I've been thinking. A lot," I admitted. Jake tilted his head. "Thinking about what?" I paused, then shrugged. "Life choices, coyotes." Jake didn't flinch. "Still into the mystery, huh?" "More like drowning in it," I muttered. He didn't push, just stepped aside to let me pass, then added, "Hey, I got you something." I blinked. "Why?" He shrugged. "Birthday, and you've been carrying a lot lately." He pulled something from his backpack, a little candle shaped like a howling wolf, silvery gray, with a tiny wick between its ears. I couldn't help but smile. "This is so weird. I love it." "You're welcome," he smirked. "Don't let it burn the place down." "I'll try not to," I said, heart light for the first time that day. "Thanks, Jake, really." We said goodbye. I watched him ride off, that little candle in my hands. 3:40 p.m. at home. I hung the paper lanterns around the small porch and set the cupcakes on a tray. The house didn't look festive, but it looked inviting, warm. Inside, I laid the wolf candle beside the couch and lit it, just for fun. Its wax flickered like it was breathing. Then I pulled out my camera and phone, rewatching the forest footage. When I zoomed in on the wolf, the one standing among the foxes, something felt off. The silhouette was Tom. Tom had broader shoulders, less graceful posture. This wolf looked old, ancient, deliberate. A chill slid down my spine. Could I have been wrong about Tom? No, I saw his pack. I saw Anderson. I saw the WhatsApp group. But still, there was something else. I looked up at the framed photo of my parents on the shelf. They were holding a raccoon between them, both laughing in the sunlight. They would have wanted me to protect the animals, even if the enemy wasn't human, especially if it was. I'll figure this out, I whispered. I stood up and dusted off my jeans. The first knock came at 7 sharp, Jake. He stood at the door with a lopsided smile and a box of cupcakes. Store-bought, but I swear I picked the prettiest ones. I smiled. You win points for showing up first. He glanced around my apartment as he stepped in. Wow, cozy. Smells like cinnamon in here. It's just a candle, I said, shutting the door behind him. But I'll take the compliment. We sat on the couch for a few minutes, sipping soda. Jake was easy to be around, calm, unassuming. He didn't push, he just was. You doing okay? He asked after a quiet beat. You seemed a little off today. I looked down at my cup. Yeah, just tired, thinking too much, I guess. You want a distraction. I looked up. He held up a finger. Don't say no yet, I brought a game. He reached into his backpack and pulled out a tiny box of Uno cards. I laughed. Really, that's your birthday gift? He grinned. It's classic, plus I plan to win mercilessly. We started playing as more guests trickled in. Nia with a bag of chips, Lara with homemade brownies, even Jay showed up late with 2 cans of iced coffee. The mood warmed up quickly, laughter bouncing off the walls. Tom arrived just after 8 p.m. He walked in with a paper bag and a hesitant smile. Happy birthday, he said, stepping toward me. I brought your favorite caramel popcorn. I took the bag. Thanks. We hugged, not tightly, not like we used to, just enough to make it less awkward. Jake glanced up from his seat on the floor, then looked away. I noticed, and apparently so did Tom. Later, as we cut the cupcakes instead of a cake, Jake handed me the smallest one with white frosting and a little gold sugar heart. To the girl who makes mystery look cool, he said softly. Happy birthday, Hilsa. I smiled, biting my lip. Thanks, Jake, that was sweet. Tom's eyes didn't leave us. The tension crept in slowly, like a fog around our feet. We sat in a loose circle on the floor, soft music humming in the background, half the group chatting about professors and exams. Jake sat beside me, casually leaning close when he spoke. So, figured anything out? He asked under his breath. I shook my head, only that I know nothing. I doubt that, he said, eyes meeting mine. You notice everything. Tom cleared his throat loudly. Hey, Jake, do you mind passing me the napkins? Jake blinked. Oh, yeah, sure. He handed them over. Tom took them, but his voice tightened. You always sit this close to everyone's girlfriend, or just mine. Silence. Everyone looked up. Jake's brows shot up. Tom, it's not like that. Tom gave a tight laugh. Sure, just looked that way when you were whispering in her ear. Tom, I said quietly, don't do this. Can we talk? He asked, voice low. Now, I raised an eyebrow. Jake stepped back slightly. I'll give you 2 a moment. No need, Tom snapped. I'll just say it here. Jake glanced at me, confused. Everything okay? Tom didn't wait. You like her, don't you? Jake blinked. What? You've been hovering around since the first day she said no to coming home with me. Always there, offering notes, showing up. I see the way you look at her. Tom, I warned, this isn't the place. Jake kept his calm. Even if I did, it's none of your business. You're the one who kept secrets. You think I'm the bad guy here. Tom's voice rose slightly. I don't think anything, Jake said softly. But Hilsa isn't a prize you get for hiding less. She's a person who gets to choose. The air thickened. My birthday, and they were fighting. Enough, I said, stepping between them. This night isn't about this. Jake stood slowly. I think I should go. Tom stood too. Great idea. Guys, I said, getting to my feet. Please, not tonight. Jake glanced at me once, his eyes soft, searching, then nodded. Happy birthday, Hilsa. Thanks for the invite. And just like that, he walked out. The silence after he left felt heavier than the music could cover. Tom rubbed the back of his neck. I didn't mean to ruin your night. You didn't ruin it, I said flatly, but you definitely didn't help it. He looked like he wanted to say more, maybe explain, maybe deny. But I was done with words tonight. I excused myself and walked to the kitchen, needing a moment. My birthday had become exactly what I didn't want, complicated. But beneath the confusion, somewhere deep in my chest, was a single thought I couldn't unthink. The wolf, the fox, the coyote, they weren't separate. They were one. And something was trying very hard to keep that secret buried. Later that night, after the guests had gone and the last cupcake had melted in the grass, I stood alone by the fire pit. I thought of the fox's eyes, the wolf's howl, the way Jake looked at me, honest and gentle, and the way Tom watched everything, too guarded to let go, too proud to fully explain. There was more to uncover. But not tonight. Tonight, I just wanted the quiet, even if it was filled with ghosts. Sleep didn't come quickly, but I managed. The sun was already warm when I pulled into the campus lot. The kind of morning that looked perfect from a distance, but felt heavy the moment you stepped into it. My fingers still smelled faintly of smoke from last night's bonfire, and the air carried that same burnt sweetness I couldn't shake, memories mixed with mistakes. I grabbed my bag from the passenger seat and took a long breath. Everyone was already moving, students spilling out of the main building, cars pulling in, laughter bouncing from one side of the courtyard to the other. But inside me, everything was quiet, too quiet. I kept my head down as I crossed the quad. A couple of girls from class waved. I smiled back, the polite, practiced kind of smile. My steps slowed when I spotted him. Jake. He was leaning against the wall near the fountain, flipping through a notebook. Sunlight hit his hair, catching faint copper tones I'd never noticed before. He looked relaxed until he looked up and saw me. Something flickered between us, a split-second shift that neither of us knew what to do with. I hesitated, half wanting to keep walking, half wanting to stop. Before I could decide, he pushed off the wall and started walking toward me. Hey, he said, voice low, a little uncertain. Hey, I replied. My voice came out softer than I expected. About last night. He nodded quickly. Yeah, that got messy. Tom doesn't usually, I started, but Jake cut in gently. I know, you don't have to explain him to me. The breeze carried the faint sound of a bell from somewhere behind us. I swallowed the knot in my throat. I didn't mean for that to happen, I said. I know, he said again, but there was something in his eyes, something he wasn't saying. Maybe I wasn't ready to hear it. Then, before I could move or think or breathe properly, he stepped closer. Close enough for the scent of his cologne to reach me, clean, something woodsy. His gaze dropped to my lips, then met my eyes again. And he kissed me. It wasn't planned, it wasn't long. Just a moment, a breath, the world tipping sideways while my heart forgot how to beat. By the time my thoughts caught up, he had already stepped back. I'm sorry, he said quietly, hands slipping into his pockets. That was stupid. I blinked, still frozen where I stood. Jake, He shook his head. You're still with him, I shouldn't have. He stopped, eyes darting over my shoulder. I turned. Tom stood at the far end of the walkway. His expression wasn't angry, not at first, just stunned. Then it hardened like something behind his ribs locked into place. For a heartbeat, I thought he might say something, but he didn't. He just turned around and walked away. Tom, I called, but my voice barely carried. He didn't stop. When I looked back, Jake was already walking in the opposite direction. The rest of the morning felt like wading through fog. Classrooms buzzed with chatter, but I couldn't focus. I kept replaying everything, the look on Tom's face, the way Jake's lips had brushed mine, how wrong it felt that something so fleeting could wreck so much. By late morning, I was sitting under the old oak tree near the art wing, flipping through my phone to distract myself. The news feed was full of forest rescue videos, mine included. Hundreds of likes, dozens of comments. And yet, all I felt was guilt. I scrolled past it and opened my notes app instead. Coyote's right arrow injured legs. Fox's right arrow similar wounds. Wolf sighting near Ridge Trail. I added another line. Pattern forming right arrow not natural, maybe same entity. I drew small arrows connecting the locations. The more I traced them, the more I realized these weren't random. The attacks circled the outskirts of the town, forming a half-ring toward the forest heart. It was like something was hurting them inward. By the time lunch rolled around, I'd worked up the nerve to look for Jake again. He was at the far side of the cafeteria, sitting alone, earbuds in, staring at his tray like the food was a puzzle he couldn't solve. I walked over and stopped beside him. "Can we talk?" I asked. He looked up, removed an earbud. "You shouldn't." "Why not?" "Because Tom saw," he said simply, "and I don't want to make it worse." "Jake, it's not your fault." He gave a quiet laugh. "You think Tom will see it that way?" I didn't answer. I didn't have to. The silence between us said enough. After a while, he sighed and moved his tray aside. "You're serious about that animal thing, aren't you?" I blinked. "What?" "The coyote, the foxes, all of it. You've been off chasing that mystery more than sleeping lately." "I can't just ignore it," I said, lowering my voice. "Something's wrong out there, I know it." Jake leaned back, studying me. "Then let me help." "Why?" I asked softly. His smile was faint, but there. "Because you're not going to stop, and you shouldn't be out there alone." The afternoon drifted by slower than usual. I went to class, but my mind was somewhere else, out in the woods, replaying what Jake said, wondering what Tom was thinking. When the last lecture ended, I walked out into the late sunlight and felt that familiar heaviness return. Tom was standing by the parking lot, leaning against his car. He looked tired, not angry now, just quiet. "Can we talk?" I asked. He shrugged. "Sure." I walked closer, every step measured. "About this morning." He held up a hand. "You don't have to explain, I get it." "No, you don't." My voice cracked more than I wanted it to. "It wasn't what it looked like." He looked at me for a long moment, eyes soft but unreadable. "I want to believe you," he said finally, "but everything's been off since the night you followed me." That hit like cold rain. I wasn't trying to. "I know," he cut in, his tone gentle now, "but whatever this is, it's changing us." I looked down, fingers tightening around my bag strap. "Maybe we need to focus on what really matters." "The animals," he guessed. I nodded. "Exactly." Something eased in his shoulders. "All right, then we focus on that." The sun bled orange as it sank behind the campus trees. We didn't say much more, just stood there in the fading light, two people who didn't know how to be together or apart. Then he smiled, just a little. "I'll call you tomorrow," he said. "Promise." I nodded, and he drove off. At home, I spread my notes again across the table, maps, sketches, circles connecting dots. I started marking new coordinates based on the trails near the ridge. The pattern was getting clearer. Every attack was drifting toward the same spot. Something big was gathering them there. Maybe that was where the villain fed. I shivered at the thought and shut the notebook. My phone buzzed beside me, a message from Tom. "Let's meet tomorrow. I'll bring something that might help." And then, a few seconds later, one from Jake. "I checked some of those forest maps. You might be right. We need to plan." I typed a short reply to both. "Tomorrow, we'll figure it out." I set the phone aside, exhaled slowly, and leaned back. Tomorrow would come fast, and it wouldn't wait for anyone to be ready. Morning didn't wait for my dreams to finish. I woke up before my alarm, the gray light of dawn barely spilling across the ceiling. For a moment, I lay there, staring at the cracks in the paint, letting the weight of yesterday settle again in my chest. Tom's text. Jake's kiss. My own silence, stretched too thin across everything. I pushed the blankets off and got ready quickly, brushed my hair, pulled it into a messy braid, and threw on a hoodie and jeans. Comfortable, forgettable. That's how I wanted to feel today. I packed my backpack with the same rhythm I always used: camera, spare battery, notebook, water bottle. Except today, something new joined the mix, a printed copy of the forest attack timeline I'd been building. Because today wasn't about feelings. Today was about patterns, territory, and finding the truth before more blood was spilled, soft or otherwise. We agreed to meet at the coffee stand behind the biology wing. It was quieter there, surrounded by pine trees and shade. I arrived a little early, fingers wrapped around a warm cup of chai I barely sipped. Jake showed up first, hoodie half-zipped, eyes still fighting sleep. Morning. Hey, I said, offering him a nod. My voice came out steady, controlled. He scratched the back of his neck. You look like you haven't slept. Neither have you, I said. We've got a lot to work on. Jake gave a soft chuckle, and for a moment it almost felt normal between us. Then footsteps crunched the gravel behind us. Tom. He looked clean and crisp, like he had run 5 miles and showered before breakfast, effortlessly perfect in that unfairly alpha way of his. Hey, he said to me, then gave Jake a tight nod. Brought something. From under his arm, he pulled out a folded forest survey map, marked in red, green, and blue. Trail overlays from the town's old ranger files. I figured it might help track the attacks. I raised a brow. You actually got these? He smirked. Knew someone who knew someone. Jake stepped closer to look. Nice, but most of these are outdated. The Coyote Trail sightings shifted west this season. Tom didn't look at him. Still a solid start. I took the map and spread it on the bench. Both of you just focus. No bickering. Jake looked at me, quiet for a beat. Sorry. Tom didn't apologize, but he did step closer. I knelt beside the bench, marking dots on the map with a red pen. This was the first incident, I murmured, near Old Creek Road, then 4 days later another near Ridge Hill. Jake leaned in, almost brushing my shoulder. Here's a theory, he said. What if it's a predator that mimics animal behavior? That's why there are no consistent patterns. Tom scoffed lightly. That makes zero biological sense. Jake gave a tight smile. We're past biological sense, don't you think? I pressed my fingers to my temples. Enough, both of you. The map in front of me felt more like a battlefield than a tool. Every circle and arrow was a wound I couldn't heal, not without their help, and they were too busy fighting for something else. Me. By midday, we were sitting under the shade, the map taped to a cardboard backing, and my notebook open on my lap. We can call it Zone A, I said, pointing to the top left. These sightings form a cluster. It could be the shapeshifters feeding ground. Tom handed me a marker. We could check the cameras I installed there last month. Might catch movement. Jake leaned forward. Or we could go there directly, stake it out overnight. Shapeshifters, if they're real, won't be caught on trail cams easily. Tom rolled his eyes. We're not dragging Hilsa into that at night. I'm sitting right here, I reminded them both, and I decide where I go. Tom backed off a little. Sorry, just being cautious. Jake folded his arms. So am I. The way they looked at each other, not just tension, but calculation, made my skin crawl. I stood. Let's take a break, meet again in a few hours. I need time to think. Tom started to say something, but I was already walking away. The afternoon sun hit harder than expected. I sat by the edge of the main quad, watching students pass, headphones in, iced coffees in hand. Normalcy looked so easy on them. My phone buzzed, a message from Jake. Let me know if you want help tonight. I'll drive. Then 2 minutes later, one from Tom. I'll come early if you need more maps. I didn't answer either of them. Instead, I pulled my hoodie tighter and walked toward the greenhouse, the quietest place I knew. By early evening, I was back on the edge of campus. The three of us met again, near the map, and discussed zones like we hadn't already argued about them earlier. Tom brought fresh aerial prints. Jake had scribbled down a list of possible shapeshifter mythologies. Both of them kept glancing at me, trying not to, but still doing it. I didn't let myself react. By the time the sun began to slip behind the hills, the plan was in place. We'd observe Zone A the next night. Quiet, no gear except the essentials, and no more fighting. At least that's what I told them. They agreed. But I saw the way Tom's jaw clenched when Jake smiled at me, and the way Jake's fingers curled when Tom brushed my arm while handing me the map. Night fell gentle and quiet. The air carried the scent of distant pine and the faint burn of old wood smoke from the maintenance shed. I walked alone toward the student lot, keys ready in my palm. Jake's footsteps caught up behind me. "Let me walk you to your car," he said. I hesitated, then nodded. We didn't speak for a while. The gravel crunched beneath our shoes. My bag shifted on my shoulder, and the wind tugged a few strands of hair from my braid. When we reached my car, I turned toward him. He didn't say goodbye right away. Instead, he looked at me, really looked. His eyes searched mine like he was waiting for a sign that I didn't know how to give. He stepped forward slowly, gently, one hand lifting slightly as if asking for permission without saying a word. I didn't move. And then he leaned in. His breath was soft, the world held still. But just before his lips touched mine, I turned my face, just slightly, and let him kiss my cheek instead. His lips lingered there for a beat too long. When he pulled back, his eyes were full of questions, but I wasn't ready to answer any of them. "I need time," I whispered. "This isn't the right moment." He nodded, once, then walked away into the night. And I stood there for a long time, staring at the shadows, wondering why I felt torn between a wolf I didn't fully trust and a boy I didn't fully understand. The morning light filtered through my blinds, soft and pale like mist over the trees. I sat on the edge of my bed, still wearing yesterday's jeans, my eyes on the camera charging beside my backpack. Last night's dream still clung to me. A forest drenched in silver moonlight. A wolf watching me through branches, its eyes shifting like water, its body flickering between shadow and fur. Then nothing, just silence and the whisper of leaves. I shook it off. Dreams couldn't guide me now. I needed facts. By late morning, I was already parked near the Ridgewood trailhead, hoodie zipped to my chin, my camera tucked under my jacket. I didn't tell anyone I was going, not even Jake. Especially not Tom. I had one goal. Catch Tom in the act. Or prove to myself, once and for all, that he wasn't involved. The forest welcomed me with cool air and quiet rustling. I followed a narrow path, staying low behind the fallen branches. The trail wasn't fresh, but it wasn't cold either. Twigs had been disturbed recently. No paw prints, but the energy, off. After 20 minutes of crouching, sneaking, waiting, nothing. Just bird song and the slow rustle of something far, far away. A deer, maybe, or wind. Tom didn't show. Neither did any wolves. I stayed until my legs ached and the camera's battery dropped to 30%. Then I quietly made my way out, not sure whether I felt relieved or disappointed. By afternoon, I was back on campus. I spotted Jake on the lawn, sitting under a tree near the library steps, earbuds dangling loose from his shirt collar, sketchbook resting on his knees. I hesitated, then walked toward him. He looked up. "Hey." "Hey," I said, voice softer than I expected. He patted the grass beside him. "Join me." I sat, not too close, not too far. I followed Tom again today, saw nothing. Jake didn't speak for a few seconds, and that disappointed you. I frowned. "No, I don't know, maybe." You still love him, he said, not accusing, just honest. I still don't know if he's guilty or innocent, I replied, and that was the truth. That matters more than love. Jake gave a little nod, his fingers smudging the edge of a pencil sketch I couldn't quite see. You've always been that way, focused, relentless, brave. Brave, I almost laughed. You're chasing predators in the woods to save injured foxes, he said. Yeah, Hilsa, you're brave. Something stirred in my chest. That ache again, the one that wasn't fear, wasn't anger, something warmer, quieter, but I tucked it away. He added, I'm sorry if I crossed a line the other night. I know, I cut in gently. Let's just focus on the puzzle. He nodded. Deal. Later, after class ended, I stepped outside to find a note stuck to my bike handle. I recognized the handwriting instantly. Tom. Meet me behind the theater. 5 minutes. I rolled my eyes a little but walked there anyway. The theater's back alley was quiet, the air heavy with coming rain. Tom stood there in his leather jacket, arms crossed, something clutched in his hand. When he saw me, he didn't smirk or joke like usual. He looked serious, and something else I hadn't seen in a while, vulnerable. I know I've messed things up, he said, but I can't stop thinking about what's out there, and you walking into it. I raised a brow. You're worried about me. Yeah, he reached forward and placed a small silver charm in my palm. It was shaped like a crescent moon, smooth and cool to the touch. It's from my grandmother, for protection. She used to say it warded off darkness. I blinked at him, surprised. You believe in that stuff? He shrugged. I don't know what I believe anymore, but I believe in you. His fingers brushed mine as he let go. I didn't pull away, but I didn't tighten my grip either. Thank you, I said quietly. He nodded once, then stepped back. Just be careful, okay? By the time I got home, the sky had turned a pale violet. Rain tapped lightly at my windows, soft and steady. I placed the charm on my nightstand and stared at it as I pulled my hoodie off. The air in my room smelled like damp earth and lavender lotion. Familiar, calming. Still, something gnawed at me. I climbed into bed early that night, camera charging beside me, journal half full with scribbled timelines. I stared at the ceiling as thunder rolled in the distance. Sleep came slow. But when it did, the wolves came again. This time, they weren't just watching. They circled. One had Jake's eyes. One had Tom's growl. And in the center of it all stood a shadow, not a wolf, not a man. Something that shifted with every blink. Something that didn't belong. The next morning, I could feel it before I even opened my eyes, something heavy, hanging in the air. Maybe it was the weight of unanswered questions, or just the ache from not sleeping enough lately. Either way, I sat up and stretched, rubbing my face and letting out a long breath. The morning light spilled through the blinds, painting golden lines across my bedroom floor. I didn't check my phone. I didn't need to. Today wasn't about messages or missed calls. Today was about finding answers. By midday, I was outside, joggers on, a zip hoodie, my backpack slung over one shoulder. Inside it, power bars, water, a flashlight, backup batteries, and my camera. Jake had agreed to meet just beyond the tree line near the campus outskirts, a stretch where the wilderness crept in like it had secrets of its own. I found him waiting beside the mossy base of an old tree, arms folded, eyes already scanning the woods. You ready? I asked, voice hushed like we were about to break some ancient rule. Jake nodded. You sure about this? An overnight stakeout is exactly a weekend picnic. I'm tired of theories, I said. I want truth, and you're the only one who hasn't lied to me. He glanced at me then, just briefly, and I caught something in his eyes, concern, maybe something warmer. But neither of us said anything more. We just slipped into the forest. By afternoon, we'd made a temporary hideout under a fallen trunk and scattered brush. We had binoculars, my camera tucked into a camouflaged sleeve, and our breath was already fogging slightly in the cooler air. Time passed like slow rain. Birds chirped, winds rustled leaves, and for hours it was just that. No dramatic reveals, No glowing eyes. Nothing but aching knees and whispers traded back and forth. "Do you really believe it's something supernatural?" I asked at one point, resting my head back. Jake shrugged, watching a squirrel dart up a tree. "I believe in things that don't make sense until they do." I smiled softly. That's actually the smartest thing anyone said to me all week. We shared a quiet laugh, then silence returned, thicker now, more charged. And then something changed. It was past sunset. The forest grew quiet, unnaturally so. Jake tensed. "Do you hear that?" I nodded slowly. Everything had stilled. No wind, no bugs, even the air seemed to pause. Then from the distance, a rustle, leaves parting, branches snapping. We both crouched lower. Through the faint moonlight, we saw it, first just a shadow shifting across the ground, then a shape, 4 legs, then 2. It twisted unnaturally, bones stretching, skin reshaping. I held my breath. Jake whispered, "What is that?" We watched, frozen, as the creature fully took form. One moment it was a fox, then a coyote, then a man. It wasn't transformation, it was theft. The skin, the mannerisms, the gait, it took it all. And worse, it wasn't seamless. The changes were jerky, unnatural, as if it was stitching itself together from leftover parts. Jake's hand instinctively grabbed my wrist. I couldn't look away. The creature sniffed the air, then reached into something. It looked like a bloodied mess I hadn't noticed before. A small carcass. Its hand pulled something from it, red, still warm. Heart. My stomach twisted. "It eats their hearts," Jake whispered, "and then it becomes them." I felt cold, not the air, but deep inside, a chill that settled in my bones. This wasn't a rogue wolf. This wasn't anything normal. This was a shapeshifter. Jake and I backed away slowly, retreating behind the foliage. We didn't breathe until we were far enough that the sounds of the creature were replaced by normal forest noise again. Back in the car, we didn't speak for several minutes, just sat there, processing. Then Jake finally said, "You were right all along." I looked at him, but I didn't want to be. I didn't sleep at all. The night kept replaying in my head. The sounds, the shifting, the devouring. By the time dawn broke, I was already halfway to campus. I messaged Tom, asking him to meet me. We met behind the library, near the loading docks where no one usually came. Tom arrived in a hoodie, hands deep in his pockets, eyes cautious. I didn't wait. "I know now it's not you, it's something else, a shapeshifter." Tom's eyes widened just slightly, but he didn't act surprised. "You saw it." I nodded. "Me and Jake, last night." Tom exhaled, running a hand through his hair. "Then you get it now, why I didn't tell you everything." I stared at him. "You should have. I was scared. I didn't know if you were the one hurting those animals." "I never hurt anything," he said, firm but soft. "But I knew someone was something." I folded my arms. "Then help me stop it." "I will." Later that afternoon, we met in one of the unused study rooms, me, Jake, and Tom. The air was already crackling before anyone even spoke. I spread out a rough map on the table. "This is where the sightings happened. The attacks follow a line north to south." Tom leaned in. "It's moving in a pattern, territory sweep maybe." Jake crossed his arms. "Or bait, it's drawing attention away from something else." Tom narrowed his eyes. "Or maybe you just want to sound smarter." Jake smirked. "At least I'm not hiding things from the person I claim to love." That did it. Tom stepped forward, eyes glowing faintly, just for a second. His breathing deepened. Then, with a frustrated growl, he turned his back, and when he faced us again, his features had shifted. His eyes were no longer human. His skin shimmered as if something powerful lurked just beneath. Jake froze. "What the hell?" Tom shifted back just as quickly. I stood between them. "Enough," I said. "We don't have time for ego wars. I need both of you." Jake looked shaken. "He's a werewolf." "I already knew," I said, "and he's on our side." Jake stepped back. "Yeah, for how long?" I didn't answer. I didn't know. That night, I sat alone in my room, lights off, the only glow coming from my laptop screen as I watched the forest footage again. Frame by frame, the shift, the devouring, the shapeshifter. I opened my video journal and recorded softly. We saw it, the thing behind the attacks. It's not just legend, it exists. And it's wrong, not a predator, a mimic, a collector. I paused, finger hovering over the upload button. Then I closed the laptop. Not yet. The weight of the night still clung to me, thick and suffocating. I hadn't slept since we got back from the forest. My fingers trembled on the mug of tea that had gone cold hours ago. I could still see the shapeshifter, how its body twisted from wolf to coyote to fox, how it moved with something more than instinct. I could still feel Jake's breath beside me as we watched in stunned silence. A knock pulled me back. I didn't move. Another knock, softer this time. Hilsa, Jake's voice, quiet, heavy. I opened the door. He stood there in the hallway, hoodie thrown over his head like armor, shadows beneath his eyes. For once, he looked nothing like the charming guy who used to flirt his way through tension. He looked older, haunted. "Come in," I said. He stepped in without speaking, but I could feel the tension radiating from him like static. He didn't sit, just stood there in the middle of the room like he was still deciding whether he should be here. "We need to talk," he said finally. I nodded and leaned against the desk. "About the shapeshifter." "No," his eyes met mine. "About me." A beat passed between us. I suddenly knew this wasn't going to be about the forest. Not just about the forest. My throat dried. I set the cup down and waited. "I want to be fully honest with you," Jake said. "You mean aside from stalking creatures at night and constantly showing up when I least expect?" He let out a breath, not quite a laugh. "Hilsa, do you remember when I told you I've seen things, that I've dealt with this kind of monster before?" I nodded. "There's more to that story." He hesitated. "Before I say it, I need you to know I never wanted to lie. I didn't know how to explain. Before it's late, I don't want to lose your trust." I folded my arms. "Try." He took a shaky breath. "A few years ago, I was tracking a shapeshifter, just like the one we saw last night. Not here, in another town. I wasn't alone. I was working with a small team hunters." "Hunters?" My brows furrowed. "Not the kind you're thinking. We were trained to identify non-humans, but that night, we underestimated it." His jaw tightened. "We set a trap. High-tech stuff, explosives meant to force the creature to shift mid-form so we could catch it in transition. But it went wrong, terribly wrong." I didn't move. My heartbeat sounded like thunder in my ears. A sickening suspicion bloomed in my stomach. "There was an explosion," he continued, voice thinner now. "Wrong place, wrong timing. A couple shooting nearby was caught in the blast." I froze. "No survivors, 2 people. That burned too fast. I tried to get them out, but—" "Stop," I whispered. Jake's voice broke. "Hilsa, it was your parents." Silence. Not the kind that echoes, the kind that crushes. I stared at him. No breath, no words. No sound but the buzz in my ears. "You're lying," I said. "I wish I was." I stepped back, 1-2 slow steps. My hands shook and my nails dug into my palms. "You," my voice cracked, "you caused that accident." "It wasn't supposed to happen. We were tracking the shapeshifter. We didn't know your parents were even near the site." "But they were, and they died." Jake's shoulders dropped and he lowered his head. "Yes." Tears blurred my vision, but I didn't let them fall. I couldn't. Rage and pain battled inside me like fire and ice. "And you just decided to tell me this even after knowing that I am their daughter," I snapped. "You got close to me, flirted with me, kissed me, knowing all along that." "I didn't know who you were, not until later, when I came to your house few days ago and I saw your photo with them." I clenched my jaw. He took a step closer, but I raised my hand. "Don't." "I became a vampire," he said suddenly. "What?" The word came out like a slap. Jake looked at me, eyes tired. After that mission, I couldn't forgive myself. I couldn't go on being weak. I made a deal with someone who could turn me. I thought if I had more power, I could stop the shapeshifter before it did worse. I stared at him like he'd grown fangs right there. You became one of them. I became something else, he said. But I never lost who I was. I still hunt monsters, Hilsa. Only now I can actually stop them. I covered my mouth. My chest felt like it was collapsing in on itself. Jake's voice softened. I didn't want to tell you, but I couldn't keep hiding, not from you. I let out a bitter laugh. Why now? Because last night, we saw what's really out there, and you need to know who's fighting beside you. I lowered my hand. So what now? You expect me to just be okay with this? No, he said quietly. I don't expect forgiveness, but I needed to tell you, because he hesitated, because I care about you. And if there's even a chance we work together to stop this shapeshifter, you deserve the truth. My knees wobbled. I sank into the chair. Everything spun, my parents, the fire, the silence that followed for years, the nightmares, the endless, aching questions. And now this. I was starting to trust you, I whispered. Jake's voice cracked. I know. I was even starting to. I stopped myself. The words burned. He knelt in front of me, not touching, just close. If you hate me, I'll accept that. If you want me gone, I'll walk out right now. But I had to be honest. I couldn't build anything on a lie. The rawness in his voice made something inside me splinter. I looked at him, really looked. The guilt on his face wasn't fake. It was carved in. You said the shapeshifter caused my parents' deaths, I said slowly. He nodded. Indirectly, yes, it led them there. We triggered the trap. It wasn't meant for them. You've been chasing this thing for years. He looked up. It's consumed everything. I became what I hated just to have a shot at ending it. My hands trembled again. I gripped the edges of the chair. Then, you're as powerful as Tom. Jake nodded. Maybe more. I exhaled, and you didn't hide it. No. That counts for something. Jake blinked. You believe me. It doesn't matter what I believe, I said honestly. But you told the truth. That's more than I can say for most. He stood slowly, giving me space. The silence settled again. So, I said after a long beat, you were always chasing shapeshifters. That's why you were so curious about me, about my case. He swallowed. I didn't know at first, but when I saw your footage, heard what you'd seen, I suspected. I let my head fall back against the chair. I thought the worst part was losing them, I said. Turns out, it's living long enough to learn how they really died. Jake looked pained. If I could go back. You can't. I know. I took a deep breath. But I still need your help, for the animals, for whatever that monster is. He nodded. Anything. I stood, walked past him to the window. The sky was gray, storm clouds gathering again. I don't trust you completely, I said. You shouldn't. But I'll work with you, because I have no choice. He stepped beside me, careful not to touch me. You have a choice, he said. You just chose right. I looked at him. You still care. He nodded, more than I should. I swallowed thickly. Then prove it, I said. Help me stop this thing, not because you owe it to the world, but because you owe it to me. I will. Silence. Then softly, I added, but after this, after we stop it, I don't know what happens. Jake smiled faintly. Then let's just focus on the now. I nodded. The truth hurt, but it was honest, and maybe, just maybe, that was a start. The truth hurt, but it was honest, and maybe, just maybe, that was a start. I sat there for a while, laptop shut, fingers locked around a mug of now-cold tea. The room was quiet, except for the ceiling fans spinning above me. My thoughts were louder than anything. Jake's voice echoed over and over in my mind. Vampire, your parents, accident, truth. It didn't fade. It etched deeper. But somewhere beneath all of it, under the grief and confusion, I felt clarity. Jake didn't lie. That mattered. I picked up my phone and typed out a message. Hilsa, Tom, we need to talk. Meet me near the science block in 30. He responded with a single word. Tom, okay. I barely had the strength to stand, but I threw on a hoodie, slipped into sneakers, and walked down the path. Every step felt like a bridge collapsing behind me. When I reached the back of the science block, the wind had picked up. Tom leaned against the side wall, arms crossed, that usual sharp look on his face, but softer. Hey, I said. Hey, he replied. You look like you haven't slept in years. Feels like it. I walked closer, stopping a few feet from him. I need to tell you something. You're not going to like it. He raised a brow. Let me guess, Jake again. I nodded slowly. He's not just Jake, he's a vampire. Tom didn't flinch, but the shift in his posture said everything. Tension crackled between us like static. And, he asked, voice cool. And years ago, he was hunting a shapeshifter. That mission, it went wrong. My parents were in the blast zone. Tom's eyes darkened. So he told you this now, after everything. He told me the truth. That's more than most have. My voice cracked. And he didn't do it to hurt me. He said he had to tell me everything before we moved forward. I respect that. Tom pushed off the wall, coming closer. Hilsa, vampires aren't saints. You know that, right? He's not pretending to be. Tom exhaled hard, jaw tight. All right, then let's all talk, get everything out in the open. We met at the library rooftop, neutral ground. Jake arrived just as the last gold streaks of sun dipped behind the horizon. His expression was unreadable, but the dark circles under his eyes hadn't left. Tom stood to the side, arms crossed again, his presence dominant, coiled like a spring. I stood between them, my body somehow absorbing the tension like a shield. I told her, Jake said first, his voice steady. Tom scoffed. Of course you did. I told her the truth, Jake added. Something you should try sometime. Tom's eyes flashed. You don't get to throw stones, bloodsucker. You killed her parents. Jake didn't flinch. It was an accident. But it still happened, Tom growled. Enough, I said sharply, stepping forward. Both of you, this isn't about guilt or pride or who she likes more. This is about the shapeshifter, the one that's been torturing animals, the one that might kill again. Silence, then Jake spoke quietly. She's right. Tom ran a hand through his hair, muttering, Fine, what's the plan? I pulled out my phone and showed them the map I'd marked. I've been logging the sightings, foxes, coyotes, the big wolf, all around this curve of the forest trail. Jake and I saw the shapeshifter shift last night. It's real, it's dangerous. I've seen strange markings too, Tom said. Ancient ones. Haven't seen them since I was a pup. I say we go tonight, I said. The three of us together. Tom muttered something under his breath, but nodded. Jake hesitated, then gave a single nod as well. The forest was colder than I expected. Dew clung to the tips of grass, and the moonlight cut through the trees in ribbons of pale silver. We walked together but silent, our footsteps crunching leaves and our eyes scanning the trees. I feel something, Tom whispered. So do I, Jake said, voice low. It's near. I stepped carefully, holding the flashlight low, sweeping the beam across moss and dirt. That's when I saw them, scattered bones, tied with strings of fur. A bundle of feathers smeared with something dark. I knelt beside it, heart pounding. Ritualistic. Tom crouched next to me. This isn't werewolf. This is something older. Jake stiffened behind us. We're not alone. I turned. A roar, deep growling too close. Then chaos. A shape lunged from the trees. Massive, shadow-like, its form wrong, limbs too long, fur patchy, eyes gleaming red gold. It crashed into Jake, and I screamed as he went flying into the underbrush. Jake, I cried. But when I reached the clearing, he was gone. Tom snarled behind me and then he shifted. It wasn't violent, not like in movies. It was fluid. His bones realigned in silence, body swelling with muscle, fur sliding over skin. And then he was there, tall, terrifying, beautiful. A wolf twice the size of any natural one, standing between me and the monster. The creature shifted mid-move. Its face became a bear. then a panther's, claws extending, tail whipping. It moved unnaturally fast. They clashed, teeth snapping, bodies thudding, snarls echoing like thunder. I stood frozen, flashlight dropped, hands shaking. Tom tried to hold it back, biting into its shoulder. But it twisted again, now a massive lion, and flung him across the clearing like a rag doll. Tom. He hit a tree hard but stood again, limping. Blood matted his fur, no, not blood. Shadows, sticky and dark like oil. The creature turned to me. I stepped back. Hilsa, a voice called Jake's, a blur of wind, and he was there beside me, breathless. We need to move. But Tom. He'll manage. Tom growled in protest, circling the shapeshifter again. The creature shifted forms mid-snarl, now a coyote, now a wolf, now a fox, moving too fast to follow. Jake grabbed my wrist. We can't fight this thing here. I looked back at Tom. He was holding his ground. I'm not leaving him, I whispered. Jake's jaw clenched. Then I'll protect you both. The shapeshifter lunged again. Jake was gone, vanished in a blink. His movement blurred the air itself. He reappeared behind the creature, slamming into its back with a force I didn't think possible. The creature reeled, confused by the speed, and that gave Tom the opening he needed. With a feral growl, Tom lunged, pinning the creature beneath his paws. But it shifted again and slipped through. Tom panted, staggering back. Jake appeared beside him, eyes glowing crimson. The creature melted into the forest like fog, leaving behind only fur and scattered leaves. Silence. My breath caught. The world tilted, quiet in a way that felt too loud. Tom shifted back, panting, leaning against a tree. Jake steadied him. Neither said a word. I stepped into the clearing, the scent of moss and sweat sharp around us. The moon hung above, cold and full, and the danger had passed for now. The silence after the fight wasn't peace. It was pressure. The forest, still heavy with shadows, carried the weight of unfinished war. The wind stirred but didn't soothe. I stood beside Jake and Tom, the aftermath of what we'd just seen echoing through my bones. Jake broke the silence. We need to end this tonight, he said, voice like stone. But beneath it, I caught a flicker of urgency, of fear. But the shapeshifter is gone, I said, my breath fogging in the cool night air. We saw it vanish. I'll find it, Jake replied, stepping closer. But to kill it completely, we need something more. You'll have to collect my blood and Tom. Tom's arms folded across his chest. Why? Jake looked at both of us, calm and unnervingly certain. We need a sword soaked in supernatural blood. It's the only way strong enough to destroy a shapeshifter mid-transformation. Not when it's a bear, not when it's a wolf, but in that fragile in-between moment when it's shifting, then it's vulnerable. My chest tightened. How do you know that? Jake didn't hesitate. Because I've been hunting shapeshifters for years, remember? Oh yeah, I murmured, the pieces falling together. You're experienced. Tom shot him a look, but didn't argue. Jake reached behind his coat, pulling out a long case wrapped in cloth. With care, he unsheathed it, a glimmering silver blade, not ordinary steel. It shimmered under the moonlight, etched with symbols I couldn't understand, but they pulsed faintly, like they remembered blood already spilled. I've kept this ready, waiting for the right moment, Jake said, handing me a small ceremonial dagger next. This will draw the blood. It only takes a few drops. My fingers curled around the hilt of the dagger. It was cold, heavier than it looked. I'll go first, Jake said. He pushed his jacket aside and held out his arm. I didn't want to hurt him, not even a little. But Jake didn't flinch as I pressed the blade to his skin, just enough to draw a thin crimson line. He held his arm above the sword, letting 3 drops fall onto the blade. As soon as they touched, the silver hissed, then absorbed them like it was hungry. Tom hesitated. He met my gaze, searching it. Are you sure? I nodded. Just a few drops, then it's over. Tom exhaled slowly. Then he rolled up his sleeve and offered his arm, jaw tight. I made the cut fast, gentler than before. His blood fell, warmer, darker. The sword pulsed once, and the runes along the blade flickered brighter. It was ready. Jake wiped the blade with a cloth and slid it back into the sheath. I'll draw the shapeshifter out. When it transforms, I'll strike. Tom, you distract it. Tom's eyes narrowed. What if it goes wrong? Jake smirked, then improvise. I didn't smile. Something about it all felt too clean, too easy. We waited while Jake vanished into the trees, moving like smoke. Tom and I stayed close, crouched in the underbrush. Minutes passed, then longer. A low howl echoed, not from Jake. Tom tensed beside me. That's not the signal. He rose quickly, scanning the dark between the trees. I followed. A flash of movement, a shape darting between shadows. We rushed toward the sound. Jake's voice cut through the silence, urgent. Here. We burst into a clearing, and there it was, the shapeshifter, its body already contorting. The change was grotesque, fur erupting from limbs, bones snapping and elongating mid-motion, eyes glowing yellow and wide. Jake lunged forward, sword drawn, fast as lightning. He struck. The shapeshifter screamed, not human, not animal, something in between, as it staggered back, the blade buried halfway into its side. Smoke rose from the wound, the transformation unraveling. Its body shook, twisted, collapsed. It wasn't dead, but close. Jake fell to one knee, chest heaving. I rushed to his side. Where, Tom? Jake looked around, confused. He was supposed to distract it. I scanned the clearing, heart pounding. He's not here. We followed the scent trail, but all we found were broken branches, claw marks, and then, in the distance, a lone figure. A coyote. Not the ordinary kind. Its fur shimmered oddly, eyes too knowing, posture too still. Jake whispered, "That's not normal." But I knew. "No," I breathed, chest tightening. "That's Tom." Jake looked at me, stunned. "What?" I stepped forward slowly. The coyote didn't move. "The shapeshifter, it's still lying there. But Tom's gone," I said, voice thick. "He's become one too." "But how?" Jake whispered. I shook my head. I don't know if he chose it or if it was forced on him, but that's him. The coyote blinked once, then turned and disappeared into the forest. Jake lowered his gaze. "Hilsa, I'm sorry, I didn't know." I turned back to the clearing. The original shapeshifter, now in human form, thin, pale, almost ghostly, lay dying on the forest floor, breath rattling. It had returned to its original form, its power unraveling with each heartbeat. Jake stepped beside me. "It's over." But I didn't feel like celebrating. Tom was gone. "I'll wait for you," Jake said quietly. I looked at him, lost. "Maybe someday," he continued, "you'll change your mind." I swallowed hard. "You'll wait for how long?" Jake's lips curled into something sad. "Until my last breath." We stood there, the sword between us, the forest watching. The animals were safe. The forest, for now, was quiet. But what about Tom? We didn't speak again as we walked out of the woods. Each step away felt heavier than the last. Somewhere behind us, a coyote watched from the trees. And the real war had only just begun. The walk back through the forest felt empty, without Tom beside us. Jake stayed quiet, carrying the sword like it weighed more than just blood. Each step he took was heavier, and I felt the cold sinking deeper into my skin, not from the weather, but from loss. I kept glancing back. When we reached the edge of the woods, headlights flashed across the distant highway, but I couldn't step forward. Jake turned to me. "We'll figure it out. He might come back." I looked down. "You still think he's coming back after what we just saw?" Jake was silent. We stepped out of the woods together, the forest behind us darker than it had ever felt. But it wasn't over. The next morning, the news anchor's voice blared through the television in my living room. Authorities discovered 2 bodies in Blackwood Forest early this morning. One has been identified as a male, unknown identity, and the other with signs of severe trauma. Investigation is ongoing. I froze. My hands trembled as I gripped the remote. 2 bodies, I whispered, standing up. Jake was already outside when I ran to the porch. We need to go, now. He looked confused but followed me. We reached the forest line just as police were starting to cordon off the area. We stayed hidden behind a thicket of pines, far enough not to be seen, but close enough to see the stretchers being carried out. One body, male, lean, pale, was wrapped in black tarp. I recognized the dead weight of the original shapeshifter. Its face was slack, no longer terrifying, just gone. But the other, the second stretcher, made my knees buckle. She was female, barely recognizable. Her skin was ripped in long trails, like something had torn through her while she was shifting forms too fast. Her hands had claws, but her face was still partially human. Jake stiffened beside me. That's not Tom. No, I breathed. It's another one. He turned to me slowly. Another shapeshifter. A spark ignited in my chest, not fear but hope. Then Tom, he stopped her, I whispered. He's still out there, and he's protecting the forest. Jake's brows furrowed, watching me. I stepped back, heart pounding. He didn't just leave, he stayed to keep it safe. That woman, he must have stopped her. Jake reached for my hand. Hilsa, wait. You don't know what state he's in. You saw what shapeshifters become. This could be a trap. I pulled my hand back gently. Tom and me, it's just... Jake's expression crumpled. He closed his eyes for a long moment. I know, I can't replace him. I never could. I stepped into the forest before he could say anything else. The woods were darker now, even in daylight. But I followed my instincts, quietly, carefully, moving through the tall grass, tracing paw prints, sniffing the air for the familiar scent of pine and fir. Then I saw them. 3 wolves, all dark, circling something. One let out a low growl. My heartbeat spiked. They turned toward me, their eyes gleaming. I stumbled back, caught my breath, started to run. But I didn't get far. A massive wolf leapt from behind a thicket, slamming into one of the wolves. The others scrambled, but he was fast, precise, lethal. Within seconds, the 3 wolves were gone, either chased or torn into shadows. I gasped. The massive wolf stepped forward, paws slow, careful. Its fur shimmered, wild and soft all at once, eyes golden like the sun breaking through clouds. The wolf tilted its head, and then, right before me, its form shifted. First into a lean, long-limbed coyote with haunting familiarity, and then... Tom. His human form stood bare-chested, dirt on his shoulders, a scratch across his temple. I didn't breathe. I couldn't. He was here. I ran to him. He didn't say anything, but his arms opened like they'd been waiting. I crashed into his chest, wrapping my arms around him, burying my face against his skin. His warmth, his scent. I thought I lost you, I whispered. I thought you were gone. Tom's hand cupped the back of my head, fingers threading gently into my hair. I chose your happiness, he said softly. I'm here to protect the animals, the forest, nature, but our paths are different now. No, I shook my head against him. I'll stay here, with you. Don't even think of leaving me alone. He pulled back just enough to look at me. His eyes were heartbreak and love all at once. I will always love you, Hilsa. I never stopped, not even for a second. Then let me stay, I begged. But Tom shook his head. It's unsafe. There are more shapeshifters out there. If you ever loved me, please go. Tears blurred my vision. I'm sorry, Tom. I made mistakes. I didn't see your love for what it really was. He smiled, faint and tragic. Then, just like that, he vanished into the trees. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on my bed, the moonlight pouring through my window, washing the walls in silver. Memories spun in slow motion, not just recent ones. I remembered how Tom used to slide his lunch tray beside mine without asking, pushing half his sandwich onto my plate. How he'd glance, barely noticeable, whenever Jake spoke to me, like he was listening for danger even in a compliment. How, when I got caught in a cheating accusation once, Tom had quietly taken the blame, said it was his notes. How he stepped in front of those college boys harassing me on the street, fists clenched, even though we hadn't even spoken properly yet. How he had always been there. Not flashy, not loud. Just Tom. And now I had lost him. But Jake was there for me. Not the best one, but not at least worst. The next morning, I went to campus, my mind fogged with all of it. Jake was waiting near the fountain, hands in pockets, smile hopeful. "Hey," he said, "you okay?" "Trying to be," I said softly. "Wanna grab dinner tonight?" he asked, tone gentle. No pressure, just food, talking. I hesitated, then nodded. Okay. Jake's house was quiet, clean, smelled of lavender and something else, like cold stones and ash. We sat at his dining table, ate quietly, talked about nothing. Then, without warning, he leaned across the table and kissed me. Softly. I didn't stop him, not at first. But then his hands slid to my waist, fingers brushing skin. He stood, stepped closer, lips now brushing my neck. "Stop," I said quietly. "I need time." He paused, then kissed my jaw anyway. I stepped back. "Jake," I warned. But his eyes changed, his smile twisted. "Where will you go?" he asked, voice deeper, darker. "You don't have anyone like Tom to protect you anymore." My blood ran cold. "Have you lost your mind?" He smirked. His form shimmered, eyes glowing, skin paling. His vampire form emerged, fangs glinting. "I need a vampire mate," he said, stepping forward. "Tom was in my way, now it's time." I turned and bolted for the door. The front door slammed behind me, so hard the glass rattled. Cold night air burned my lungs as I sprinted down Jake's porch steps. Gravel scattered under my shoes, the sound sharp against the quiet street. "Hilsa," Jake's voice echoed after me, rough, almost non-human. "Don't run from me." I didn't answer, I just kept running. The street was swallowed by mist from the forest beyond, the same forest where everything began. My heart thudded so loud it drowned the crickets. I reached my car, fumbling for the keys. My fingers shook too much to grip them. The small metal pieces slipped, hit the ground with a tiny clink that sounded deafening. I bent to grab them, and a shadow fell across the hood. Jake. He was faster than air, standing inches away, eyes glowing faintly red in the dark. "Where will you go?" he said softly, almost tender, but his voice had that hollow echo. He moved, a blur, and in the next second his hand caught my wrist. His grip was iron. I struggled, twisting, trying to free myself. "Jake, stop," I yelled, pulling back with all my strength. He leaned closer, his breath was cold. "It'll only take a moment. After that, you'll understand me." I felt his other hand brush my hair aside, exposing my neck. Panic clawed at me. I slammed my knee upward, hard. He staggered just enough. I tore my wrist from his hold and darted past him. My breath came in ragged gasps as I ran toward the trees, branches whipping against my arms. "Hilsa!" His voice wasn't human anymore, it was a snarl. I didn't look back. I reached the forest line, heart hammering, my shoes slipping in wet soil. The moonlight broke through the canopy in thin silver ribbons, painting the path ahead like veins of light. I ducked behind a fallen log, pressing my hand over my mouth to quiet my breathing. Leaves rustled, footsteps light, too light, closing in. He was following me. My phone buzzed faintly in my pocket. I almost screamed. I pulled it out, switched it to silent, then crouched lower. A branch cracked to my left. Before I could move, Jake's hand shot out, grabbing my shoulder from behind and slamming me lightly against a tree trunk. The bark scraped my back. His face was inches from mine, eyes wild, fangs glinting softly in moonlight. "Don't fight it," he said, his voice trembling. "You'll thank me when you see what we can become." He tried to pull me closer, his strength impossible. I turned my face away, pushing against his chest. "Jake, this isn't love, it's madness." He growled, a sound that rattled my bones. "It's destiny." "Let me go." I shoved again, but his hand tightened on my jaw, forcing me to look at him. For a split second, something flickered in his eyes, guilt, sorrow, then hunger replaced it. He bent closer, his breath cold against my skin. And then the night ripped open with a roar. A massive shape crashed through the trees, faster than thought. The impact threw Jake backward. He hit the ground hard, rolling through leaves and dust. A wolf, huge, silver-gray, eyes burning gold, landed between us, fur bristling, chest heaving. The moon caught his outline like fire. "Tom," I whispered. Jake rose to his feet, hissing, fangs bared. "You again." The wolf growled, low and thunderous, the sound vibrating through the ground. Jake lunged, faster than a blink, but the wolf met him mid-air, claws slashing through nothing but the echo of movement. They collided, the force throwing sparks of dry leaves into the air. I stumbled back, clutching my throat, watching as they circled each other. Jake moved like lightning, but Tom was pure power, grounded, steady, protecting. Every step he took pushed Jake backward. "Tom, stop, don't hurt him," I cried, but the words were swallowed by snarls. Jake tried to dodge, to vanish, his vampire speed flickering between trees, but Tom was ready. With a single bound, he struck Jake's chest, sending him crashing against a tree trunk. The impact cracked the bark. Jake gasped, the red light in his eyes flickering. "You can't stop me." Tom growled, a warning rumble that froze the air. He lunged once more, and Jake stumbled back, vanishing into mist. One final blur, one echo, and he was gone. The forest went still. Only the sound of the river in the distance, and my uneven breathing filled the silence. Tom stood there, chest rising and falling fast. His fur glistened under the moonlight, streaked with silver light. Slowly, carefully, he turned toward me. I stepped forward, trembling. "You saved me again." He lowered his head slightly, eyes softening. The glow in them changed, less gold, more amber, warm. "Tom," I whispered, my voice cracking, "it's really you." He took a few steps closer. I could hear his breathing now, steady, rhythmic, alive. I reached out, my fingers barely touching the fur along his muzzle. It was coarse and warm and familiar. "Come back," I whispered. "Please." For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then his shape shimmered. The fur drew inward, bones shifting, light curling around him like smoke. His form straightened, stretched, reshaped, until the wolf was gone and Tom stood in front of me, human again, his bare skin catching the moonlight, his eyes the same soft amber. I pressed my hand to my lips, tears spilling before I could stop them. He smiled faintly, tired but gentle. "You're safe now." I stepped forward. "I thought I'd lost you forever." He shook his head, brushing a strand of hair from my face. "You could never lose me, Hilsa, not while I'm still breathing." My knees gave out and I fell into his chest. His arms wrapped around me, strong, warm, steady. The scent of forest and rain clung to him, the scent that had always meant home. "I love you," I whispered against his skin. "Don't ever vanish like that again." His lips brushed the top of my head. "I won't, not while the forest still needs me, not while you do." The wind moved through the trees around us, carrying the scent of pine and dawn. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote howled, not in warning this time, but as if it too was at peace. Tom and I stayed there, holding each other, while the night finally began to lighten, silver fading into pale gold. For the first time in forever, the forest was calm. And so was I.